Hi guys, and welcome to the Watch Lobby. If you're looking for honest, unfiltered watch reviews, then you've come to the right place. In today's video, we'll be taking a look over the Seiko SARB033, a watch that over the past few years has gained a lot of traction. We'll look closely at if the extra attention is warranted. If you like what you see in this video or any of my other videos, please subscribe to my channel. Now, let's get started. The Seiko SARB033 was released in 2008 and discontinued in 2018. It had an extremely strong 10-year run, packing an absolute truckload of value into this relatively smaller package. While in production, these were available to be picked up in the 300 to 400 Aussie dollar range. At that price, I say what a bargain. Since they were discontinued, their prices have near doubled. Let's take a closer look at the SARB033 objectively, keeping in mind their original recommended retail price. While the 033 was still in production, I feel it went under the radar. A lot of collectors snubbing their nose at what essentially is a very minimalistic watch. Attention to detail is where this Seiko really shined. Starting with the case. On my calipers, the case diameter measured in at 38.2mm. Lug to lug of 44.6mm, a thickness of 11.3mm with a conventional lug width of 20mm. Keeping in mind the SARB033 was a Japanese domestic market only watch, the smaller measurements clearly targeting the smaller wrist audience. Looking at the case finishing, what is hard to pick up and explain is the case almost has a tiered design element. I'll do my best to showcase it. The lug hood's being brushed, then with a small step down that starts towards the front of the lugs and then drops down and wraps around the rest of the case, which is then polished. A touch of class for the affordable watch that was. Topping off the case is a simple smooth bezel and a sapphire crystal. Again, what a great touch at that recommended retail price point. Quickly checking out the side of the watch, we can see a signed Seiko crown, which is not screw down. We don't often see signed crowns at this price point anymore. Looking at the dial, here we have the gloss black dial of the SARB033. There is also a white variant in the 035. Both absolutely stunning pieces. There are applied hour markers which are polished with a single chamfer right through the middle, and the 12 o'clock indice slightly wider than the rest with a double chamfer through it. All indices have a touch of lume flanking the ends. You'll see the date at 3 o'clock which is bordered. The hands are polished sword-like hands with, again, a touch of lume added to them. Lastly, on the dial at 12 o'clock we see an applied Seiko logo, and at the 6 o'clock printed are the words automatic 23 joules. A very simplistic dial executed amazingly. Flipping the watch over, we see a display caseback using Seiko's Hardlex crystal. During the last 10 years, a display caseback was a big selling point for Seiko. Seiko have a very strong grip on the collectors just entering the hobby. Falling victim to it myself all those years ago, I used to use a display caseback as a plus when picking a watch. As a new collector, who didn't love seeing a movement through a display caseback? I think that novelty wears off for collectors over time, but a clever move nonetheless by Seiko to add a display caseback on the SARB. On the caseback itself, you get the usual spec list, serial and model number. In this instance, looking through the display caseback, you'll see the lackluster 6R15. Using the 6R15, which we all know too well, is or was one of Seiko's higher tiered movements for their entry level pieces. Yes, that's right, it's the better of their average automatic movements. Accuracy on the 6R15 was rated between -15 and +25 seconds a day. Beating at 21,600 beats per hour, they would come in with a power reserve of roughly 50 hours. At the time, when picking an entry-level automatic Seiko, you really only had two options: the 6R15 with hacking and hand winding, or the 7S26 with neither. A few years after the release of the SARB033, Seiko introduced the 4R series movement, which slotted right in between the two, and doing that seemingly increased the popularity and the appreciation for the 6R series. The 6R alone was a great selling point for the SARB033, bumping it up compared to other pieces using the 7S and 4R series. Another thing that Seiko done well on the SARB was the bracelet. The bracelet has solid end links, tying in with a solid 2-piece link which Seiko have made to appear like a 3-piece. All held together with push pins down to a machined clasp. Only 2 micro adjustments on the clasp however. The entire bracelet is brushed with the sides of the bracelet being polished, really giving the SARB that tool watch aesthetic. Tool watch you say? Sure, the SARB was intended to be the office worker's watch of choice. When looking at what this watch used to cost, Seiko absolutely packed a lot into this little piece. Now, where this gets interesting is what happened to the price for the Seiko SARB033 and 035 since it was discontinued. Down here in the Aussie market, you will see them listed and sell for between 700 to 750 Aussie dollars. For a watch that was mass produced for right around 10 years, it does get a bit difficult to justify that price. Sure, the spec list packs a punch, but is that enough? At the current market value, it really brings the new Alpinist into play. Some different design elements sure, and a slightly larger case, but you do get an upgraded movement to the 6R35. Another alternative that comes to mind is the Seiko SARB003 or 001, a watch that I had in my collection for a little while. It is a bit of a step down from the SARB spec list, but for roughly half the price of the current market value of the SARB, the SARV is definitely an alternative worth considering. So the question I ask myself is, would I buy the Seiko SARB033 at today's market price? For me, the answer is no. With the rise of micro brands in recent times trying to break the market, if you are after a watch that has a hefty spec list, I would say that's where you should be looking. If your heart is set on Seiko, they have such a large range of watches, and let's face it, with a plethora of grey market dealers for Seiko watches, you're almost guaranteed to find a watch you want for the price you want if you look hard enough. I've heard it many times over from friends that are just getting into the hobby and asking me for advice. They feel like they missed out on the days when Seiko was truly releasing watches packed with specs with an attractive price tag really targeting the collector. I tend to agree with them. With that said and done, that brings us to the end of another video. I really hope you enjoy these honest review videos. If you do, please smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. And always, thank you and stay safe.